Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for November 21st. November 21st is the 325th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 40 days remaining until the end of the year. And before we get started, I want to say that a little birdie suggested to me that today might be the birthday of my friend Leslie. If that's true, happy birthday, Leslie. And today we're going to start in 1694 when the French historian, playwright, and philosopher Voltaire was born in Paris, France. On this day, November 21st, 1694. On November 21st of 1776, General George Washington ordered General Lee to come to New Jersey in what proved to be a fateful decision. Continental Commander-in-Chief General George Washington wrote to General Charles Lee in Westchester County, New York, to report the loss of Fort Lee, New Jersey, and to order Lee to bring his forces to New Jersey. Lee wanted to stay in New York, so he didn't trouble himself none to hurry any. General Lee had taken a commission in the British Army soon after finishing military school at the age of 12, and he served in North America in the 7 Years' War. He felt slighted that the less experienced Washington had been given command of the Continental Army, and so he was in no kind of hurry to go help Washington out. Apparently this General Lee also had a bit of a temper on him, such that the Mohawks had given him the name of Boiling Water. He was an adopted tribesman through his marriage to a Mohawk woman, but being married apparently didn't dim his interest in, shall we say, ladies of the evening. So now we're remembering that this is November 21st. That General Washington requested Lee to come to New Jersey, and he's in no hurry to do so. And so it is that over 3 weeks later, on December 13th, still dawdling away on his way to meet up with General Washington in New Jersey, Lee left his army and went looking for a girlfriend for the night. He found his way to Widow White's Tavern in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, where British Lieutenant Colonel Tarleton and the 16th Queen's Light Dragoons captured him on the morning of December 15th. Tarleton knew right away who Lee was because they had served together in the British Army, and there they were now, captor and captive. It seems that General Lee not only didn't get the job he'd wanted in the colonies, before that he'd been disappointed in his efforts to secure a lucrative royal appointment, which is kind of why he came to the colonies in the first place, ostensibly to retire. Not long after he got here, he joined the Patriot cause. Now Tarleton had sworn in a London club that he would hunt down that traitor to the crown and relieve him of his head. Fortunately for Lee, Tarleton failed to keep that promise, although Lee might have preferred a quick end to the humiliation of being led from the Widow White's Tavern to New York City in his nightdress. Everybody wore nightgowns in those days. As it happens, the British were quite pleased to have captured the Patriots' best trained commander, while Washington negotiated for his release to no avail. Meanwhile, the faithless and fickle Lee enjoyed his captivity, even drafting a battle plan for his captors from plush accommodations in which his personal servant maintained his 3 rooms and no doubt served his food and wine in a most civilized fashion, an early version of country club prison. In case you're curious, the British did not act upon his plan. Lee was released in May of 1778, upon which he reported to Valley Forge. He still resented Washington. I guess sometimes old grudges never die. And they argued with some regularity. Eventually, Lee was suspended from the army in December of 1778 and dismissed in 1780. On this day in 1783, men flew over Paris in a hot air balloon. 2 Frenchmen, only one of whose names I can confidently pronounce, made the first untethered hot air balloon flight. They went 5.5 miles as they flew over Paris. It only took them about 25 minutes. And wowee, what an adventure that must have been. In 1789, North Carolina ratified the United States Constitution and was admitted as the 12th U.S. state. November 21, 1864, President Lincoln allegedly writes to mother of Civil War casualties. Legend holds that on November 21, 1864, President Abraham Lincoln composed a letter to Lydia Bixby, a widow and mother of 5 men who had been killed in the Civil War. A copy of the letter was then published in the Boston Evening Transcript on November 25th and signed Abraham Lincoln. Now this story says allegedly and legend because the original letter has never been found. In 1877, Thomas Edison announced his invention of the phonograph. The American inventor announced his invention of the phonograph, a way to record and play back sound. Edison stumbled over one of his great inventions, the phonograph, while working on a way to record telephone communication at his laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey. I guess this is another classic case of finding something while you're looking for something else. 1905, Albert Einstein's paper that led to the mass energy equivalence formula, being E equals mc squared, was published in the journal Annalen der Physik. It sounds like maybe a German scientific paper. 1916, the Britannic, sister ship to the Titanic, sinks in the Aegean Sea. After the Titanic sank in 1914, the White Star Line made some modification to the ship's design and also required that there be enough lifeboats on board for everyone. And it's a good thing they did. The Britannic had started out life as a luxury cruise ship, but was then requisitioned as a hospital ship during World War I. The ship was on its way to pick up some wounded when there was an explosion after hitting a mine in the water. 30 people died, but more than 1,000 were rescued and survived. On November 21st of 1920, American baseball player and manager Stan the Man Musial was born in Donora, Pennsylvania this day. He died in 2013 at the age of 93. Now here's a sweet story. On the evening of November 21st, 1934, a skinny teenaged would-be dancer found herself on stage at Harlem's Apollo Theater to participate in the harrowing tradition known as amateur night. Oh, amateur night. By pure chance, her name was drawn out of a hat, and there she was. She was an aspiring dancer, but the act immediately preceding her had been dancers, and pretty good at it, and she really felt that she couldn't top that. So she spontaneously decided to turn singer instead, a change of heart that would prove significantly not only for herself personally, but also for the future course of American popular music. This was Ella Fitzgerald at the tender age of 15. Her decision to sing instead of dance on that day in 1934 set her on a course toward becoming a musical legend. It also led to her victory at Amateur Night at the Apollo, a weekly event that was then just a little more than a year old, but by golly, it still thrives today. Amateur Night at the Apollo, where their motto is be good or be gone. 1958, American baseball player, manager, sportscaster, and Hall of Famer Mel Ott died on this day as a result of injuries from an automobile accident. He was only 49. 1959, American disc jockey Alan Freed, who had popularized the term rock and roll and music of that style, was fired from WABC AM radio over allegations that he had participated in the payola scandal. In 1964, the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge opened to traffic. At the time, it was the world's longest bridge span. In 1969, the first permanent ARPANET link was established between UCLA and SRI. ARPANET stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. This was the first network to implement the TCP/IP protocol suite. Both technologies became the technical foundation of the Internet. On November 21st, 1976, the movie Rockies, starring Sylvester Stallone as the underdog prize fighter Rocky Balboa, debuted in New York City. It opened in theaters across the country a little bit later on December 3rd of that year. Oh my goodness. On November 21st, 1980, millions tuned in to find out who shot J.R. 350 million people around the world tuned in to television's popular primetime drama Dallas to find out who shot J.R. Ewing, the character fans love to hate. J.R. had been shot on the season-ending episode the previous March 21st, which now stands as one of television's most famous cliffhangers. And if you don't happen to remember, I won't leave you hanging on a cliff. The November 21st episode solved a mystery identifying Kristen Shepard, J.R.'s wife's sister, and his former mistress as the culprit. On November 21st, 1986, the Iran-Contra scandal began with shredded documents when National Security Council member Oliver North and his secretary started shredding documents that allegedly implicated them in the Iran-Contra affair. My goodness, I think we've come to the end of the line here. I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and feel free to share this video. Get it out there for everyone to see. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. One more time. Annie hears me talking. She's got to come see what's going on. Okay, lay down. That's a good girl. Good girl. Let's do that one again. Okay, hold still. Blah, 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 coffee mug. It's late enough in the day that we're off coffee and on fizzy water. Just read the words. Just read the words. That's a lot of words. Hope I pronounced that right. It's not September. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? She's not a man. Sure would be nice if I could ever read one of these in its entirety without having to start anything over. That would be awesome. I might have to take another look at that. I'm going to have to look at that. This is why I don't do live shows.